everything paranormal. Para-X. The views expressed and the opinions given by the individual host and their guests do not necessarily reflect those of Para-X, its affiliates, or its sponsors.
Bright the cheeks and warm the heart, but tread the circle thrice about to keep unwelcome spirits out. Abide within the law you must, in perfect love and perfect trust. Mind the threefold laws you should, 3 times bad and 3 times good. These 8 words the read fulfill, and ye harm none, do what ye will.
Welcome to Stirring the Cauldron. Now, here's your host, Marla Brooks.
Merry meet and welcome to Stirring the Cauldron. You know, when we were kids, we worried about some kind of monster living in our closet or under our bed. And then we got older and reality became a little clearer, and we realized that the monsters we used to fear were long gone. And now we kind of more or less have monsters of the humankind to worry about. And sometimes those are 10 times worse than the boogeyman that we used to fear. But somewhere in between our childhood beasts and the beasts that make headlines today, there is a category called cryptids, which is animals that may or may not exist. Now, these creatures show up in many centuries-old stories and legends, and in many cases, people still report sightings today. So we're going to have some fun tonight. My guest is Richard Sennett. He's the world-renowned paranormal investigator and ghost storyteller, as well as an established historian, lecturer, specializing in early California history and the history of the cities of Ventura and Ojai, California. And he's also the founding of Ventura County also. Richard is the author of many books, and his latest book, Golden State Monsters, is a listing of bizarre creatures that are said to wander the state of California, from Bigfoot to Lake Tahoe's Tessie, Tahoe Tessie, and there's a bevy of other ones. Some are scary, some are funny, and some are just completely outrageous, but just never know. So if you'd like to ask Richard any questions or have had a cryptid encounter that you might want to just mention in the Para-X chat room, fire away. And if you're not in the chat room, you can come over, visit us at paraxradionetwork.com. And let's get going because we got a lot to talk about. So, Richard, welcome.
Glad to be here.
You know, I mentioned a moment ago that you're a renowned paranormal investigator and ghost storyteller. So, what was there about it that cryptids really got to you and made you interested in them? Because, you know, you're very well-rounded in a lot of things, but what led you into getting interested in the cryptids?
Well, I was urged by some friends to write a book about ghost dogs. And I had a lot of my files. I started to call people and research and find out about, ghost dogs. And I wrote a book called the Golden State, California Ghost Dogs, that's selling quite well. But in the course of that, I came upon some weird dogs, some weird creatures, which kind of aren't dogs, like the snake dog. Looks like a dog, but it has the head of a snake. And the woman dog of Watts, that was a weird one. A big dog with a head of a woman. Mm-hmm. And it frightened all these people in Watts, and they called the police, and people saw this weird thing. What in the world was it? So I got these sort of oddball cases that I just couldn't just dismiss. Yet there was something going on here. So I began to look into my files or talk to people. I found that there are lots of sightings of animals I had researched, like the black panther of Conejo Valley. Matter of fact, I may have actually encountered that when I was a kid many years ago in Thousand Oaks. And I had talked to people who had seen what they said was a billywhack monster of Santa Paula, a sheep man kind of creature, 9 foot tall, covered with white fur. So I had a lot of these stories in there. And in researching this out, I found that even Matt Moneymaker had seen a Bigfoot up in the Condor Reserve in the northern part of Ventura County. In fact, that's what got him started in the search for Bigfoot, which he's still undertaking at this time. So I got interested in that, and I began to collect all these stories, and I was surprised how many people I knew had encounters with strange, bizarre animals. Now, a lot of them I found listed on the internet. You know, there's
because somebody in the chat room, in fact, her name is Tabby, and she said that she has to ask you about the Flying Cat of Weaverville.
Yeah, now that is a weird story. I tried to find other references to it. This one lady calls me up and tells me about the story of encountering a flying tabby, and I found no evidence of anything like that. I even asked her about it. She was sure it was not a bat or a bird, but it was a cat, and it had big wings, kind of like bat-shaped wings, that was coming off of its back, flying around. Now, I had found no references to anything like that. I even asked her, you know, have you been drinking or anything like that? She said, no, she hadn't been. And she loves cats, so that may have part of the reason why she would see that. Now, what had she actually seen? I don't know, but it was something quite amazing all the way along.
I would like to see a flying cat. I mean, because
I would like that too.
Yeah, because you know those big fruit bats, those real huge ones, I think they're like puppies with wings, you know, because they're kind of canine. But yeah, that Weaverville cat, I was just interesting. And then there was the cactus cat too.
Well, a cactus cat, I think I know what that is. That is an old cowboy legend. Now, it is a fact that in the Southwest, bobcats will climb on top of saguaro cactus because it's the tallest thing around to look around. Yeah. So they will perch on top of these cactuses. Somehow they can climb up them without getting stuck. And as they do, they use them to observe. So I think cowboys would see them, a cat on top of a cactus, and made up the story. Of course, when they got closer, the cat would jump off and retreat and hide, so they couldn't really identify it. But this whole story came out that they were these felines that lived in cactuses, ate scorpions, and would howl when they would get drunk on eating the fermented cactus juice. So I tend to think when cowboys out in the prairie or in the desert would hear wild sounds at night, they would attribute it to the cactus cat, which were supposed to be quite dangerous when they were mating and had their kittens and would, defend their nest, if you will, which was always in a cactus. Now, there are examples of cactuses that have been cut, and animals, of course, would drink the juice from them. So maybe that was another way that legend got to be started. But then maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's not a legend, and there really are cactus cats out there that perch atop saguaro cactuses.
Yeah, and you think about that though, but how do they not get all stuck with the sharp things that they're going to climb up? I mean, it would hurt, I would think.
Yeah, unless we have photographs of them, so it does. Yeah. That does happen.
Yeah. Maybe their fur protects them or something, or they learn at an early age how to not get stuck. Maybe that's it.
Yeah, well, there must be some way they manage to do it because, as I say, I've seen photographs of them sitting on top of these cactuses, enjoying themselves, looking around for maybe more prey or for any oncoming people. But it's an interesting dilemma, what in the world that is. But it's one of the more colorful creatures that I managed to dig up in my research.
Oh, you dug up a lot. Now, my guess is that there isn't a place on Earth that doesn't have a whole slew of cryptids, be it legends or sightings. I mean, some like Bigfoot seem to be global, all over the place. And then there are some like here in the United States where they have their own, like the Jersey Devil or the Hodag of Wisconsin or, Wyoming's jackalope. I always thought jackalope was cute. And really Florida's skunk ape, which is nice. And here in California, we've got many of our own. And your book is really a delicious smorgasbord of creepy delights. I was really surprised at how many we've got here in California. Some I've heard of and others are new to me. But I think you said you actually might have seen one earlier, because I was going to ask you if you'd ever seen any of the beasties that you wrote about, or maybe any of those have found you rather than you go looking for them.
Well, I think there's a lot of stuff out there. And as I say, one of the biggest stories in my story is misplaced animals. Animals that exist, but they should be there. Like in the Conejo Valley, a black panther. Now, black panthers are common in Africa, but this isn't Africa. Now, there was a place called Jungle Land in South, and they had black panthers there, as they had lions or other African creatures. One of the panthers did escape, but he was quickly recaptured after, I think, 48 hours. So they caught him. And but people after that would see a black panther. And they're still seeing him to this very day. You know what my theory is? Is they have wild cougars up there, mountain lions. And I think a female went into heat, and that black panther smelled her, even though they can smell for great distances.
Sure.
And it escaped, had fun with the fellow feline, and when it got hungry, it went back to its cage and was recaptured. But the offspring of the black panther are what still haunts that area.
That makes good sense.
Anyway, that's a logical thing. Or maybe some of the black panthers just turn up, or the mountain lions turn up black sometimes.
Yeah, because you get albino animals sometimes that are all white and shouldn't be. So, yeah. Well, one of the places in the book that is familiar to me is Griffith Park. And for those people who aren't familiar with Griffith Park, let me explain that it's not a neighborhood park. It's a huge, like 4,000 about 4,000 acres. Let's go round it out. And it's one of the most municipal parks in the United States. I mean, it's absolutely huge, and it's part of the Santa Monica mountain range. And I found this out, and it was interesting that it's so big that its elevation goes from 384 to 1,625 feet above sea level. That's how big it is. Lots of hikers. It's a hiker's paradise, but it's also part of Griffith Park Observatory. It's the Los Angeles Zoo is there. The Hollywood sign is there. I mean, all kinds of things. And we know about ghost stories and sightings there, but I never came across a green man in all the times I've been there. So I want to hear about the green man at Griffith Park.
Well, the green man might be a cryptid linked to UFOs. A lot of strange stuff in that area. A lot of different things come from Griffith Park. Now, we've all seen Griffith Park because it's used in so many TV shows and movies over the years. You know, Rocket Man, The Rocketeer is one of them that uses Griffith Park, the observatory. Even the Batman Bat Cave, you know, or the old TV show when the Batmobile would come out of the cave. That's in Griffith Park. So all these places we have all seen have lots of different creatures have been encountered. This was a strange one where some young people actually saw this weirdly shaped green man with green skin, walking down one of the walkways late at night, a roadway, and then it just vanished, took off. So lots of people have encountered strange, oversized wolves or coyotes. People have actually seen pterodactyls. I mean, flying lizards coming out of there. How do you define this kind of stuff? What in the world are people encountering? Now, some of them might be magic. Maybe they were doing some kind of dope. I don't know. But whatever it is, they're fun stories, and it gives us a lot of pause to think about, you know, what is the nature of our world? Is it nicely defined as we think, or are there anomalies? Are there slips in time where we might get an image from the prehistoric age, or are we getting some kind of oddball things from other dimensions or other forms of reality? We don't know.
Well, that's what they say about Bigfoot, that it may be a multidimensional being, and some people say they're extraterrestrials. So, yeah, there's a cryptid link to UFOs then, pretty much, right?
Very much, because I've had several weird UFO-like encounters like this. These two people claim to have seen brain-like figures, so things that look like a human brain floating in the air. And people have seen a strange smiling man who is hitchhiking in the desert. All kinds of oddball things that could be linked to UFOs and outer space connections, if you will. All kinds of different things. Still, we just don't know much about this world. There's things that might indicate that we are visited by strangers from other worlds. Now, Bigfoot, he is our most seen monster. There's all sorts of variations of him. But, you know, he could be any number of things. First, you know, a big animal that walks our earth, or a form of man that somehow somehow has kept himself secret from us through some means or another. Or it could be an outer space element. People have linked sightings of UFOs with Bigfoot. And I've talked to UFO people as well as Bigfoot people. Both of them say that they get high EMF readings near places where Bigfoot has been seen and where UFOs have been seen to land. So there's a link right there that might imply something. There's so much we just don't know.
Yeah, that's the strange part of it, or the frustrating part of it, maybe. And, you know, people go out on ghost hunts. People go out on Bigfoot explorations. Do you know of people that just go out looking for cryptids?
Oh, yeah. There's a whole science, cryptozoology, which studies just these bizarre phenomena. There's even a sub-branch of Bigfoot hunters, Bigfootology. And the Bigfootologists just concentrate on the study of Bigfoot himself or itself, whatever it is. So there are sub-classifications within cryptozoology. And cryptozoologists actually have made a few discoveries. And that's what people don't realize. It's a full science. We haven't found Bigfoot yet, nor have we gotten an answer to the Loch Ness Monster. There's a lot of other things we've found, like, just for instance, we've recently have been able to classify a new type of African elephant, the Congo elephant, which has straight tusks, Well, they were right in front of us, but now we know that they are a separate breed. They're not like the African elephants we know about. So they found those, and they've also found Octopus giganticus, a huge octopus, kind of like the Kraken. But unlike the Kraken, this is a very shy and not an intrusive creature that doesn't attack ships and pull them down. It just stays on the bottom of the ocean and eats things. So there's all kinds of things we have found which have proven to be real. And we're still looking at that Bigfoot. We haven't yet got a lot of evidence, but we have found some interesting stuff about the Yeti over in the Tibetan area of Nepal. They have actually found some hairs, and they managed to get a match. Now, it's controversial. They don't know for certain, but it seems to be the hair of a prehistoric polar bear, a polar bear that went extinct 30 million years ago.
Wow.
So, if it is not a anthropoid, but in fact a polar bear, the fact that it ceased to exist 30 million years ago and it's still running around the Himalayas is important, I think, and would be a great find.
Yeah, actually, yeah. Got a question from Cece in the chat room. She said, wondering if you know what the heck is lurking in the redwood forests outside of San Jose. She said it's amazingly creepy there.
Oh, I've gotten all kinds of stories from that area. Of course, most of them point to a Bigfoot-like creature in that particular area. And people have pointed out, also in that same area, a figure that looks sort of like an early hominid, kind of like a Neanderthal man or something like that. So it's more human-looking than a Bigfoot, yet not human like Homo sapien, like we are. So that could be one of the things that are there. But people have seen and felt all kinds of weird things in that particular area. And it's only in a small zone. It's not like in the whole forest, just a small valley of the forest that's gotten all these accounts of cryptids.
And they're everywhere, and it's just kind of, you have to look for them or you hear about them, and it really kind of perks your interest. Once you start reading a book like yours, you want more. You want to dig into a little deeper ones and stuff. And like we were talking before the show, I mean, some of them are very silly, like the cockroach that's 6 feet tall and speaks English.
Yeah, now that's I have a hard time accepting that. That was supposed to be a California city. A guy told me about that. And it's a strange story of this bizarre cockroach things. And he went to an old motel. Now, I've been to old motels which were in bad shape and infested with bugs, but this is a super big bug. I don't know. Now, that's just his interpretation. I don't know how true it is, but it could be just one of these stories. But my goal was to put together a full list, because no matter how ridiculous some of these stories might be, it could be that there's a kernel of truth behind them all. And I've found a few, I've listed them, where people have been able to explain away a cryptid. Like in our lake here in Ventura County, it's called Lake Casitas. Now, it's a man-made lake. It didn't exist until 1961, but they have a cryptid in it. And it is a gigantic fish called Old Hoover. And it's supposed to be as big as a VW bus. I talked to a guy who works there. And he said, you know that story about the monster fish? I think it's true. I said, what do you mean? Have you seen it? He said, yeah, I think I did. See, he works for the lake. Now, they don't allow swimming in the lake, but they allow this guy to go and check on the piers and stuff. And so puts on a wetsuit. He goes down and he examines the pilings. That's what his job is. And he was down there. It's very murky on the very bottom. And he said he came face to face with it. Mm-hmm. And he said, huge. It was, the size of like a horse. It had a gigantic head, but he could see the head had a huge mouth and 2 whiskers on it. So it was a catfish.
Wow.
So, now, as you may or may not know, catfishes never stop growing.
Right.
They just grow and grow and grow as long as they're alive. And as long as they're not eaten by a predator, they can get quite huge. Mm-hmm. And so it's possible when the lake was formed, some guy had a little catfish in his aquarium, and he dumped it in the lake because he had to move or something. And now that little guy has been on the bottom of that lake eating all the crud down there, getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And when people see him, he is now a monster. So that might be the answer for that particular cryptid.
Mm-hmm. And we're going to take a break in a second, but that just reminded me, too, you talk about this white rattlesnake that people think is some kind of a cryptid, but there are such things as, like I said, albino creatures, and I've seen white rattlesnakes, so I didn't know why they kind of thought that was a cryptid of some kind, except it had something to do with it won't attack a Native American, but it will go after anybody else, and then rattlesnakes don't generally follow people or something.
Well, the guy told me this. He said that it actually followed him back to his car. And as you know, only snakes follow. The only snake that does that is a cobra in India. They follow you and bite you. They're kind of mean that way. But this one actually seemed to be aggressive. And he said it was large. He hadn't seen one that big before. Now, he may have freaked out. And it could be that the snake got scared and started to move what he thought was away from the man, but actually was following him. That's possible. And this Indian fellow, Native American, he knew, who was a bartender, by the way, he may have given him a little guff, too, saying that it was a sacred snake that only bit people who were non-Native American.
Yeah. So, I mean, when I thought about that, white albino snakes are, dime a dozen. So, anyway, we're gonna take a break, and so everybody stay put, and we'll be back before the hellhounds start to howl.
Cauldron will be right back, so don't go away. If you end up with webbed feet, remember, you've been warned.
As you go about your daily life, look closer. Every year across America, a staggering 4.2 million youth are homeless or trafficked. Covenant House is the national leader providing safe housing for youth, 50 years strong. Every youth who walks into Covenant House gets clean clothes, hot meals, medical care, and a safe place to sleep. So, look closer at Covenant House and help us fight youth homelessness. To help or get help, go to covenanthouse.org.
Are you haunted by shadow people in the middle of the night?
Do you secretly love all things creepy and spooky, enjoying ghost stories and horror fiction from the best storytellers?
Do you have a true ghost experience you want to share, but no one will believe you?
If yes, listen to the professionals on What Are You Afraid Of? Horror Paranormal Show Friday nights at 9 p.m. on Para X Radio and at www.whatareyouafraidofpodcast.com.
What Are You Afraid Of on Para X?
Our creepy and demented hosts are on call to provide you with all your spooky needs with true ghost stories, interviews, indie music, and new horror fiction. We are ready to scare you.
Para X. Missed an episode of Stirring the Cauldron? Then be sure to check out marlabrooks.com and check out the archive. And while you're there, check out Marla's weekly Witches Oracle card reading. Explore the site to find many great resources, such as information on tarot, oracle readings, metaphysical consultations, and links to all of Marla's books. That's marlabrooks.com. Welcome back to Stirring the Cauldron. Once again, here's your host, Marla Brooks.
And my guest tonight is Richard Sennett, and we're talking about his latest book, Golden State Monsters. You know, I found it interesting in reading through the book that there are lots of Native American legends behind many of these monster sightings here in California. You know, I mean, Native Americans were here long before the Europeans, and you know, so lore goes from one place to the other. But okay, I'm laughing because I'm looking at this thing. I'm looking about the legends of the black chicken of Ojai. Because partly, I mean, it's an interesting story and I want you to talk about it, but also in many different legends, black animals like black dogs are death omens. So, you know, that kind of fits in with some of the other things, not necessarily Native American beliefs, but, you know, you see a black dog and, you know, whatever. So talk about the black chicken.
Well, black chicken is the strangest story I ever got. A guy came to me, young fella. He said he was drinking in Ojai, but he only had a few beers, and went to his car and saw a 12-foot-tall black rooster. And I was about ready to dismiss the story. You know, I thought maybe he had a few too many and imagined it. But then I wrote it down. So I write everything down. And later I was doing research on the Chumash people up at the reservation, and I found a reference to these omens of death. And one of the omens, there were three omens of death, the black dog, the black chicken, and the worst of all, the black coach, the big black stagecoach-like thing driven by a top-headed man believed to be El Diablo himself. So these are very Catholic kinds of stories. But the black chicken, if you saw that, it meant you would die within a year. So I talked to the fellow to find out, are you Chumash? Do you know anything about that? And he said, no. I didn't inform him about the fact that it meant he would die in a year. And as much as I know, he's still alive. So maybe the black chicken wasn't for him. Maybe it was for someone else. But whatever it is, if you should see a black chicken, maybe it's a good time to get all your affairs in order.
Yeah. Well, I think if I see a 12-foot black chicken, I'm thinking that I would be losing my mind, and so that would be the end of it anyway. You know.
Yeah. Well, he said the black chicken didn't say anything to him. I asked him, what chicken tell you? And it said didn't say anything. It just moved away and was gone. But,
not even a cluck.
Not even a cluck.
Yeah.
Quite silent. But so the black chicken doesn't sing or cluck or crow, I guess. But one of the more weirder stories I've gotten. Now I've gone to that same place and I have yet to see the black chicken, so I guess I'm going to be around for a while.
Maybe you should take some chicken feed with you next time and sprinkle it on the ground and see what happens.
Oh, who knows? Maybe I'll get some. There are a lot of chickens in Ojai, I will say that, running around, but none of them are 12 feet tall.
Okay, well, you know, that's part of the thing you talk about, oversized cryptids. You know, so we have the 6-foot cockroach, and now we have the Blackfoot. The Blackfoot, the black chicken. So, and you know, he was big too. So I think people like to make things a lot more interesting by saying, okay, well, something that, you know, is an inch is supposed to be, oh, look, it was 2 feet long kind of thing. It makes it more interesting.
Sort of like the black dogs. A lot of these black dogs or hellhounds you were mentioning are huge. They're not like a normal-sized dog. These are big animals that could be like 6 feet tall. And so it's, if you should encounter something that big, it means you may have, in fact, seen a supernatural kind of creature. And usually the element about the hellhound is they always have eyes aglow like burning coals or red eyes, which might be eyeshine of some kind. But these black dogs are seen all over. In fact, there's an interesting theory that they are linked many times to Bigfoot sightings. And one of the stories I heard, now I don't know how true this is that Bigfoot has domesticated them.
Wow.
So, and he has used his telepathic powers to control them. And now they hunt with him. And he uses them to scare off Bigfoot hunters or scare game so he can eat it or something like that. And I guess it kind of makes sense. I mean, here he's a lonely guy, the Bigfoot. He needs a dog, right?
Man's best friend.
Or Bigfoot's best friend. But anyway, a hellhound can be really big and fierce creatures, and they go back and they're found all over the world. Really, they are a universal phenomenon. But we've had oversized bunny rabbits that were seen over in the Newhall area. And that was seen, by the way, by a college professor, a geologist, who said he saw this huge bunny rabbit. But there was a place called Animal USA, and they think that a large kangaroo-like creature had escaped. Now, maybe that's what he saw, was one of these wallabies, and people mistook it for a bunny rabbit.
Yeah, that makes good sense. Somebody in the chat room is asking if there are any spider cryptids.
Any what kind?
Spider cryptids.
I have heard some rumors, but I haven't heard anything good, or I would have included it in the book, because that would be a great story of a large, oversized spider, about the size of, 6 feet across, a huge, gigantic spider. That would scare the heck out of me. I don't like spiders. But I haven't found anything that was that big so far in my search, but I have just limited myself to California. So there might well be somewhere else.
Yeah, well, in Harry Potter, there was a huge spider, Aragog. Yeah, so, that was kind of creepy. All right, let me jump over to some lake monsters, because they're all over the place. I mean, you've got the Loch Ness Monster, you've got all kinds of them. I didn't know that Lake Tahoe had a monster like that. Tahoe Tessie. Can we hear about Tahoe Tessie?
Yeah. All of these creatures all have a variation on Nessie, the Loch Ness Monster, like Tessie, the Lake Tahoe monster. And it's actually become kind of like a cottage industry. A guy wrote a children's book illustrated about the monster. There are T-shirts you can buy about Tahoe Tessie. They even had, for a time, a museum and stuffed animals of Tahoe Tessie that you could buy. I bet you could still find them to this very day. And that pattern has been replicated wherever there seems to be a lake. There's a monster of some kind in it. And the different lakes, like Lake Elizabeth has a monster, and all of these different lakes have creatures in them of one kind or another. One of the strangest ones was, let's see if I remember what the name of that one was. It's down in the L.A. area, and this guy actually owned it. It was a Spanish land grantor, a guy named, I hate when I blank out there, but it was I'm looking up the book here. See what it was. Don Miguel Leonis. I should remember that, the Leonis Adobe. He bought this lake, Lake Elizabeth, and they said it had a monster in it. It was eating the cattle. He was a cattle rancher. And he decided to get rid of it. And he saw the monster, which he described as a dragon. a Chinese dragon. And he actually contacted the Sells Brothers Circus in Chicago, and he wanted to capture the thing and sell it to the circus for several $1,000s. So
Jeez.
he was thinking entrepreneurially, and they actually got a big net and guns and went out looking for it. Now, at that time, in the 19th century, there were lots of Chinese people in California. They were one of the first groups to come in with the gold rush, and a lot of them left the gold fields and started restaurants. And every Chinese restaurant had a picture or painting of a dragon, which was supposed to give good luck. So people knew what a Chinese dragon looked like. They saw pictures of them in the restaurant. They said they saw this huge dragon, had wings, and it flew off. And they tried to capture it, but it ripped through the net, and they shot at it, and it took off and was never seen again. So he was unable to sell it to the circus. But a winged creature was seen at Tombstone, Arizona, and shot. And they said they took a picture of it. It looks more like a pterosaur, flying dinosaur than anything else. But that's the story of the Lake Elizabeth monster, and the dragon that's there. But all of these have different names, variations on the Lake Tahoe kind of monster, like the Oak Nest monster of Lake Merritt up in the San Francisco, Oakland Bay area again. But again, a lot of these are done sort of like as a gimmick to get tourists to come. They usually have little, stories of the sighting, T-shirts, a little books, stuff like that. There's Elsie of Lake Elsinore and the Haji monster of Lake Haji. All of these different ones that people have that supposedly inhabit the area. And not only are they linked to lakes, but they're also found in some streams, and even the San Francisco Bay has a monster they call Sassy, after San Francisco. Sassy the monster. And again, they all kind of look like the Loch Ness monster with lots of teeth and a head and a big body that swims around, kind of like a seaborne dinosaur of long ago, plesiosaur, I think they're called.
Yeah.
And so that's what they think they are. Now, most of the time, these creatures do not appear to be anything, but the ocean's pretty big. So if anything exists, it might be out there. Who knows? We don't know what's at the bottom of the ocean.
That's true, and maybe we don't want to know.
Well, there's still rumors of megalodon, too.
Yeah.
A gigantic 60-foot shark, or maybe it's a 100-foot shark that supposedly swam in the days of the dinosaurs, but maybe a few still exist.
Well, when you're talking about the Chinese dragon, the good luck dragons, mostly, I mean, that's what these lake monsters kind of always, when they take a picture, and maybe it's not a picture, maybe it's something doctored up, but they all look like that benevolent dragon. You don't see one that looks any different, really.
It's kind of interesting about dragons and the fact that they exist in the Far East, but also in Western culture as well. Some have theorized that they might have been leftover dinosaurs, and that maybe people in ancient times may have encountered before they all died out, and that was the root source of the dragons and stories we get of these creatures.
Yeah. And, you think of the pterodactyl, that's, we learned that in school. There's like 3 dinosaurs that we were taught, and, there may be offshoots or something, but it's really kind of interesting. Now, also in the book, you mentioned some out-of-place animals, like the La Crescenta ape. And I do want to mention, you talk about the Pasadena parrots. And, I'm living really pretty close to Pasadena, and I've seen those flocks of birds, and they're amazing. I mean, you can't miss them. They're here a lot, and I mean, they're really loud. You hear when geese go over, they make a lot of noise. These parrots go crazy, but they're really kind of neat. So talk a little bit about some of the out-of-place animals, like the ape, for example.
Like these are tropical birds. Now the story is that there was a pet store and it caught fire and the birds escaped. Anyway, but except the pet store didn't burn at the time they said it was. And I thought that there was an illegal fellow from Latin America came up with some illegal parrots, and his truck got involved in a traffic accident and the birds escaped. Now what's interesting is some of the birds are of unknown breeds. It could be that they have been together, this flock of tropical birds, and they have mated species that normally do not interact, and created a hybrid species. Or maybe they changed with the environment, or maybe they were just different at the beginning. We don't know. But that's a fact, as you can testify, there really are these tropical birds where they shouldn't be.
Yeah, and they're beautiful, and they they fly in formation. I mean, it's really a sight to behold when they're there. But they can wake the dead. If you're sound asleep, you will not sleep when they're flying over, because and then they'll perch in trees. And tall trees, and then they'll just, I mean, they're kind of neat. I like them. But
like living in the tropics or a jungle or Peru or Brazil or something like that.
Yeah.
But the one that really gets me is the Black Panther on Catalina Island. Okay, I can accept that there might be black cougars. The cougars might have something where they're black. How would a cougar get to Catalina Island?
The big white steamship, remember?
Somebody would have had to have brought him. Who would bring a cougar, a mountain lion, to Catalina?
And if there's more than one, how would they have gotten that many across the 26 miles,
Yeah, and they've been seen for years, so there had to be descendants, so they have to have someone to mate with. So how does that happen? That is a really great mystery, but a lot of very responsible, respectful people have seen these animals even in the daytime. One man, he saw one licking out of a drinking fountain that had some water in it. And it was sitting there in the middle of the daytime. Oh, there's a giant black panther right in the park. And it took off.
That would be scary. But, Catalina has buffalo, and people, we know the story of the buffalo in Catalina Island.
We don't.
But
we know about the buffaloes because they've been there. We know their origin, how they were brought there. But this is a different story. What in the world is that?
Yeah. And for people that don't know, Catalina is a nice island, 26 miles across the sea. Everybody knows that song. And a lot of it is just wilderness, and that's where the buffaloes roam. And they came from a movie set that was taking place over there, and they just left the buffaloes, I guess, because it was, safe to leave them there because they could eat fine food and stuff. I don't know the whole story, but I know that they were left behind on purpose.
I've listed one cryptid, which I don't think is a real cryptid, and it's one that affects a lot of states, and that is Hogzilla. A lot of pigs, normal pigs, have escaped the farms and gone wild. And sometimes they grow big. Because, like the catfish, they'll just grow and grow and grow as long as there's food for them to eat. Yeah. And they go wild, and they have tusks, and they grow hair all over them, and they call them hogzillas because they're not a hog, but they're kind of like a Godzilla hog. And some of those get to be hundreds of pounds. And there's one that's been seen in Northern California, and there was one even shot in Oakdale, and it was like over 600 pounds.
Oh,
and these are dangerous animals.
Yeah,
they'll kill you if you get too close to them. They'll charge and they'll gore you with their tusk and kill you and eat you. They eat anything, meat as well as vegetables, and so you could become their next food source.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like too much fun. All right, so here's the question. Do you have a particular favorite Golden State monster?
Well, the one I like is, of course, Bigfoot. I've always had a soft spot in my heart for Bigfoot. And the one that's interesting is this camp monster that was taken up north, seen up north several times. It is a Bigfoot, but all with red fur. Has red fur, and it actually pushed down a pine tree, a 40-foot pine tree. It was so big it just pushed it down. It was like 12 feet tall. A tremendously muscular animal, but it had that red fur. The thing that's interesting and that really fascinates me is they managed to find samples of the fur. And they did have that analyzed, and that fur was from no known animal on planet Earth. So that has to go up there, because here we finally have some evidence of something that we can analyze. Because so many of these sightings are just, as you say, blurry pictures or witness identification. They saw or heard something. But here we actually have some physical evidence of an animal they were unable to identify.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing is so interesting, and again, people need to read this book because it's fun, it's interesting, it kind of makes you scratch your head a little bit sometimes, and then, sometimes you laugh out loud because, that's the way it goes. That time is creeping up on us, so we're going to have to get away, but I want you to mention your recently published book, The Charman and Other Ghosts of the Ojai Valley, and also give out your website address, and people can get books from there, but you also have a couple on DVD format, so tell us about it.
Lots of different ways to get in touch with me. I'm on Facebook, Richard Serret Ghost Hunter. You can get me there, or richardserret.com, or you can always go out to Amazon.com. I have an author's page there which lists all of my books, and it also has a way where you can buy my newest works, the Charman, Ghosts of the Ojai, as well as California's Monsters, Golden State Monsters. And I am working on new projects all the time, and so hopefully I'll have some new books up as well. But I'm always busy. I love writing, and I love research, and I love talking to interesting and unique people who have had unique experiences with the paranormal and the unknown.
Yeah, and I just want to mention the DVDs, the couple that are there. Did you narrate on them, or what were they, and was it you?
Well, most of them, I worked with a local filmmaker, and we made a couple of little videos about local ghostly places mostly. They're just about ghosts and legends and stuff like that.
Okay, yeah, because I'd seen that. I mean, I saw all your books, and Charman looks really interesting too, by the way. But yeah, I wondered what people would think about the DVD and what it was all about, so that's great.
Yeah.
Well, you've got a lot of books coming out, and you're always welcome to come back, and you will. I will track you down, just like, a cryptid, and say, come on back, I'm interested in this. So thank you.
I'm kind of hard to get a hold of sometimes, but by all means, keep in touch. I look forward to the next show.
All right, so do I, and so thank you for sharing the new book, and I want to also thank everybody for listening in. And until next time, everybody, blessed be, and merry meet again.
This has been another edition of Stirring the Cauldron with Marla Brooks. Be sure to tune in next week at the same time for another great guest and more fun. Any rebroadcast or other use of this program without permission is strictly prohibited. Copyright 2009.
You have been listening to the Para X Radio Network.